I think that it's a good point within the plot, but I don't think it's as strong as it could have been because I never really felt like Hiccup ever took responsibility for those actions. I'm comparing this to like Simba in Lion King. Every time that you see that one, that's a tearjerker. But it's because Simba is taking full responsibility and realizes the gravity of his actions. Hiccup, even though it was Toothless that killed Stoic, it was really his decisions that led them there to that point. Because Stoic did tell him, there's no reasoning with Drago, just leave it be. And it was because he chose to go after Drago that this whole thing kind of catapulted and led to Stoic's death.
I see what you're saying there, but I do think it is unfair to compare an African to a white man because white men can get away with anything. And a lion in the wilderness of Africa, there's a lot of systemic issues there that we need to address. That's all I'm saying. Even I'm uncomfortable.
Dragon claw, wing and scale. Come now, let's examine a tale of the greatest beast ever considered. Another episode of Big Flying Lizards.
So in a movie that is about dragons and Vikings and just, almost artificer levels of invention, do you know what was the most ridiculous, most outlandish, most just unfeasible, unlikely thing that I saw in this movie come up?
A protagonist keeping a parent.
Well, close, but no. Josh?
A DreamWorks movie that doesn't actually use a parent figure in the second film.
Hey, another close but not quite, Chayce.
I'm really resisting what I want to say.
Give in.
No, we'll save that. We gotta get through this before you just gotta start bleeping it.
All right.
I'm kidding. I don't know. They didn't really follow the Shrek formula.
Well, again, not quite. The real most unrealistic thing is that the woman changed her mind and came back to the man. So, welcome to Big Flying Lizards, a dragon movie.
What I was gonna say.
A dragon movie and television podcast. I am your host, Bryce Wilson, and this is a very notable first episode. We don't have one guest. We don't have two guests. We've got three guests on the podcast, all returning people. Please give a warm welcome to both Chayce, Ryley, and Josh for our coverage of How to Train Your Dragon 2. How are we doing, guys?
So good.
Good. I do think that you got it wrong. There is 4 people if you include Chayce's back.
Chayce is back.
Go ahead. Explain yourself.
His wide-ass back. That's what I got. 4 people on the pod.
We got 4 people on the pod. We have 3. Yeah, and as Nana Bagar is saying in the chat, it is a foursome that we've got going on here. And there's a lack of divorced dad energy, which I will see. I don't know if that's the case that's going on, but...
Put on some Nickelback, it'll change real quick.
Hey, Creed, Nickelback, we'll see. Like, this has the very... It's been a while. Well, I don't know if there's really anywhere else to start but with a great introduction to this film. So if it's all right with the 3 of you, I'm going to just dive right in and introduce our film. How to Train Your Dragon 2 is a 2014 American animated fantasy film loosely based off the book series of Cassandra Cal, produced by DreamWorks Animation and written and directed by Dean Blois. It is a second installation to How to Train Your Dragon trilogy. Jay Blachell, Gerard Butler, Craig Ferguson, American Fernay, Jonah Hill, Christopher Mintz-Plasse, TJ Miller, Kristen Wiig reprise their roles in the film and are joined by new cast members Kate Blanchett, Mon Hasu, and Kit Harington. Set 5 years after the events of the first film, the film follows a 20-year-old Hiccup and his friends as they encounter Vakel, Hiccup's long-lost mother, Draco Bloodfist, madman who wants to conquer the world and use a dragon army. The sequel of How to Train the Dragon was announced in April of 2010. De Blois, who co-directed the first film, began drafting an outline in February 2010. Agreed to return and direct a second film on the condition that they'd allow it to turn into a trilogy. He cited The Empire Strikes Back and My Neighbor Totoro as his main inspirations, with an expanded scope on The Empire Strikes Back. How to Train Your Dragon premiered in 2014 Cannes Film Festival on May 16th, 2014, and was released in the United States on June 13th. Like its predecessor, it received critical acclaim for its animation, voice acting, screenplay, musical score, action sequences, emotional depth, and darker tones compared to its predecessor. It grossed over 621 million worldwide, making it the 12th highest grossing film in 2014. It won a Golden Globe Award for Best Animated Featured Film and 6 Annie Awards, including Best Animated Feature, and was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature. So, with all that, what are our thoughts on the film?
Well, I'll kick it off. This is, first of all, when we were contacted through our agent for this, I was
The number was too low.
thrilled because this is one of like my favorite animated films. I just think that the whole collection is incredible. So, and the second one I think in particular is very fun. So I was like super hyped. And also you really get to see so much more fun and joy and personality of the dragons, which is always lit. So for me, this was like chef's kiss. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that this one definitely has a lot more character than the first one. Josh, you might be disagreeing with me, but I feel like there's a lot more emotional ties in this one. And Josh, what were your overall thoughts on the film?
I think that it's a great film. I don't think it's as good as the first, but I think that it improved in a lot of areas. And I think that DreamWorks did a fantastic job. They've always done, like, I think that DreamWorks is one of those few companies that can do sequels really well. It seems like Pixar and Disney can't get that formula down. So I think that this one was a perfect sequel to it.
I think that Disney and Pixar, they're hit or miss with their sequels, because I do think Toy Story 2 is better than Toy Story 1 in my personal opinion, but
That's a take.
that could be a debate right there.
Number 3.
Oh,
But speaking
was also stuff.
Speaking of debate, Chayce, what was your thoughts on the film?
We're making this about Toy Story now.
No.
This to me is one of those films that they took all the parts from the first one that you like wanted more of, and they just gave you the parts that you wanted. Like you got the personality from the dragons, you got to see all of the things you wanted. So this was very much almost like a fan service film, but like for dragon kids, not like anime kids. So there was no titty, but there was lots of dragon in the way.
Well, just wait for the live action adaptation. I'll just say that.
There's going to be so much tit.
Well, I actually was really, and we'll get to it eventually, but as I was watching this film in particular, like I haven't been too excited about the live action adaptation other than just seeing the live dragons essentially that they're going to be bringing into this world. However, I do think if they are willing to go and take this movie in particular and make it PG-13, they have a chance to make it just super epic. Just in particular, the scene when all of those Vikings are swarming that, like I was thinking like if those dragons were really just like Return of the King-esque dragons, they'd just be going and just lighting those guys up all over the place, just missiles essentially going all over, but they were just targeting the catapults, they were just targeting like some of the boats, and like again, like I know it's a kids show, but it really had an opportunity to just be dark as hell. But yeah, another thing is I'm really glad that they were able to bring in some more talent, sort of just highlighting what Nana's saying. Wait, Kit Harington is in this movie? Yes, Kit Harington is in this movie. And there's a few instances where you can definitely hear him. Most of the time it's a little trickier. He's the guy who plays the dragon catcher that they initially run into on the boat. He has like the tattoos where his goatee is supposed to be. I think he did a phenomenal job in it. So I'm excited to dive into that more. Anything else that we want to necessarily highlight right now with this film?
Yeah, I would love to highlight the disrespect to Cate Blanchett and the incredible star power that we want to talk about Kit Harington. We got Cate Blanchett. It's fine.
Hey, Ryley, I was going to save that, but I was honestly so happy when I realized that she was in it, especially for the fact that we not only get her in the film, but we get her singing in the film. That was like, to me, getting her doing a song with Gerard Butler was like, I don't think I can die happy. I don't think I didn't know I needed it, but by hell did I need it.
Absolutely. 10 out of 10.
And like I said, we'll dive more into that. I was quite curious just that they were taking inspiration from Empire Strikes Back. Chayce, I know that the both of us, and Josh, I also know, Ryley, I assume, but maybe I'm assuming wrong, but
He's not a
we're all big Star Wars fans over here. But I can see a little bit of Empire Strikes Back inspiration, but for the most, I'm just seeing like Iceland's, and that's it.
I mean, yeah, like I see some of the. No, I think if I were to like to really dig into it, I think I can kind of draw the parallels between the story as a very avid Star Wars aficionado there. But I would have to like really noodle. You know what I mean? Off top, I'm not like other than the one aspect, but I think that's really sick.
Yeah, I missed the Yoda and Luke solo that they did together.
You've never even seen the movie.
He's got me clocked.
No, I think, again, we talked about this last week. John Powell, he's the one who did the music. Again, he's still good. I'm not saying that he's not, but I feel like he just did a lot of rinse and repeat in this film, which, again, the first film had such a great score that you can sort of get away, but I would have loved to see more variety of music, you might say.
Yeah, I feel like this is one of those movies. They didn't take a lot of risk, but they just did it really well. They didn't try to like take any one part of this movie and really go over the top compared to the first, in my opinion.
Okay, I mean,
that was the girl. What are you talking about?
I'd love for you to expand on that, Chase.
I watched them. This is where I went wrong. I watched them back.
You watched them back. What do you mean?
I accidentally watched them backwards.
So you watched the third one and then you watched the second. Let me guess. You're watching the first one tonight after the pod.
I will have you know, no. And when I say I just don't feel like, to me, it's like more of the animation style. The story, yes, like this stuff, but it's like it's a better polished version of the first version. It wasn't like they were like, we're taking this, in my opinion, like that the music or anything in a crazy different direction.
For sure. Well, I mean, sort of on that note, because I think you might agree with this then. So it did not win the Oscar for Best Animated Film that year. It actually lost to Big Hero 6. Now, on principle, I sort of the opinion that sequels should not get Oscars unless that's just far and away better than what else is out there. However, like I did really like Big Hero 6, but if we're just comparing the two films together, I think I did prefer How to Train Your Dragon 2. But what are your guys' thoughts on that?
In my opinion, I think the animation in this one was so good. Like there's one part within there where all the dragons are kind of circling around this one rock, and it has so much more colors. Like compared to the first film, they've definitely done so much better at adding more life, more dragon. I mean, there's so many different types of dragons that they continue to, and that's kind of what you want with a sequel, you know, is that it expands the universe and expands our knowledge of what that world and that universe is. And I feel like they did a really good job with it. But I'm looking at some of the films that came out that year. And I don't know. I don't think that there's one that really honestly, Big Hero 6 compared to this, I think I would have taken this over Big Hero 6. But
okay.
I'm biased.
Just
this
a little.
Dragons, it doesn't.
Ryley?
Well, for me, I think in terms of like storyline and everything like that, I prefer How to Train Your Dragon 2 because it's just like, I don't know. I feel like it stands the test a little bit longer in terms of like storyline, and I feel like there's just so much nostalgia with it and such a deep connection for this, you know, series of films where like Big Hero, I mean, like people loved. I mean, it's great. You got Baymax, it's lit, but it's not really like no one is, you know, foaming at the mouth for, you know, another Big Hero. When it comes to the animation style, however, I can see where Chayce is talking about like polishing, because it really is. Like, I mean, at the time that the first film came out, it was definitely unique. It was something that we hadn't really seen. Dragons weren't really portrayed in this kind of like cool but also derpy kind of way. And then you had this. And then the second film just like elevated that, where Big Hero to me, I think, was an animation style that Disney hadn't done yet. They had tried some other things. And so for them to foray into this like almost anime-esque style for this, you know, like San Francisco or whatever, you know, like it just really, that's what the city name is. Okay. I'm just here. But like, it just, I do see why that would have taken over, if that makes sense. Like, I get it from that standpoint.
Controversial to say.
Surprise us here.
I've never seen Big Hero 6.
That's a
I said it was controversial. Did I not warn you guys? Trigger warning.
You didn't say trigger warning, so Nana's going to start throwing tomatoes in the chat over here pretty soon.
I've just never seen it. It didn't appeal to me. I don't know. I don't have any.
Guys, I'll get him in line. We have Disney Plus. I'll put him on it.
I had to text his mom for the login, so.
I mean, what other good movies have you not seen? Indiana Jones. You already told us Jurassic Park before the stream started.
All I'm saying is that this man is criminally under-movied. Like, criminally so.
Culture, I see.
Well, don't worry. We got him to watch The Black Cauldrons.
By the way, of which when I found out listen, that is one of my favorite movies
He
ever.
tried to bail tonight.
Okay, first of all, I'm an introvert, so I just wanted to sleep. But I'm here, and I'm invested. Secondly, what I would love to say is that I grew up on The Black Cauldron. We could have, like, that shit. Anyway, but then you had this knob on there. It's fine.
That's
Well, you ghost me too many times, Ryley, over here. Like, you leave me on red, and
Are we having our first lovers quarrel?
first,
Is Josh
this
third
is
party?
the first you've acknowledged. I've had one-sided lovers quarrels over here.
I'm a Virgo. What can I
Got the hate
say?
pipe again.
But yeah, I've never seen Big Hero 6, so How to Train Your Dragon 2 for sure. For the win. It makes sense. It was animated better. It looked better, the better story. It didn't have that big, I think that Big Hero 6 is that big circly thing.
Baymax.
Whatever that is. Yeah, the Duramax. It didn't have the big Chevy truck in it. I liked that it was a fantasy movie. I don't know what trucks and honky-tonks was in Big Hero 6, but it sounds like a sick movie.
It's fun. It's a fun film. One last thing that I think is quite interesting about this film, but this movie actually beat Kung Fu Panda 2's opening night in China. However, Kung Fu Panda 2 beat How to Train Your Dragon 2 stateside, but in China, apparently they loved How to Train Your Dragon 2, and they did not care for Kung Fu Panda 2. I don't necessarily know why that's the case.
Because they have pandas in China already. They don't need to see another one.
You'd think though that they'd be like, "Hey, that's our boy over there. That's our boy."
Listen, they know that pandas are a scam, and so they're like, "We are not promoting this any longer." Like, they needed to take a stand, and they chose the better of the two. Americans are stupid, and we were like, "Yeah, absolutely, pandas, woohoo!" And they were like, "You know what, dragons." But I kind of makes sense to me that dragons would have been chosen anyway, because like that's such an intrinsic part of like Eastern culture anyway. Even though they're like Western style dragons, I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say, because if in a lot of ways, I don't know if you heard about this controversy or not, but China was actually they came in and influenced Mulan, well, Disney, to remove Mushu from the live action Mulan. Like, that was because they viewed that as disrespectful towards like Eastern dragons, like having that character.
So hold on. What you're telling me is that China, who's probably listening, is responsible for ruining the best Disney film of all time. Like the remake.
You said it.
Wait a minute. What?
Okay, one.
Frozen?
Anyway.
And that's all we have for today, folks.
Let's get into this movie before I kill him.
Well, this seems like
so gender neutral.
We've lost so many audiences in this. We've lost the China market. We've lost the women. We've lost
the French.
When did we lose the women? Was there women?
Hey, Chayce, you'd be surprised how many of these girlies love dragons. They did love dragons.
They've moved over.
This is a family show. Let's keep it moving.
All right. Chapter 1, A World Beyond Berk. 5 years after the dragons and the Vikings made peace, Hiccup and Toothless chart unknown lands while Astrid and the others train in dragon races. Stoic urges Hiccup to prepare for leadership, but Hiccup is unsure if he wants to be chief. While exploring the burnt forest, Hiccup and Astrid are ambushed by Ernest and his dragon trappers, revealing Drago Bloodfist's plan to conquer dragons. Stoic recalls his past encounter with Drogo and fortifies Berk, but Hiccup refuses to accept war, and he sets out to find Drogo and reason with him. Hiccup and Toothless encounter a mysterious dragon rider revealed to be Valka, Hiccup's long-lost mother. The shocking reveal of Valka's survival leads to a dragon paradise. When I first heard that there was going to be a sequel, I was really concerned that it was going to be just rinse and repeat of the first one. As a younger kid, like, I'm not gonna lie, I was really like, I don't know if this is it. Like, I don't know if this, because this came out during the senior year of high school. So I guess, yeah,
I know. Whoa. Forget how young you are. God.
yeah, shut up, Chayce.
I'm the senior in this.
Old man Ryley over here.
You're offending Grandpa.
Let me tell you something. Back in 2014, when I was just a wee 20 years old, 20 years old, I was really prepared, the same way that you were, for this not to turn out right. I said, how could they possibly take this a little bit further? So I was also shocked, but with my frontal lobe a little bit more developed, not by much, I'll tell you that, I was still just as concerned as you were.
I'm glad I wasn't alone in that. Josh, as our designated super fan over here, what was your thoughts process when it was coming out?
I'll be quite honest. So when this came out, I was not in the States at the time. I was gone in Mexico at that point. So I didn't know about this movie until after I came back, and I watched it after the fact.
Were you able to watch the third one like in chronological as well, or did you just get that one right when you got back?
I have yet to see the third movie.
Oh,
I've been holding on to it for the next episode.
And you claim to be a super fan. I see how it is. Well, it's interesting because they were able to get Kit again. I know Riley's rolling his eyes over here when let's talk about Kit Harington, but this is 2014. Like, they're still doing Game of Thrones, and I'm sorry, Kit. Like, I love you as an actor, but Game of Thrones is going to be the biggest thing he ever does. Like, that's just the fact of it. Like, he peaked, and I'm happy that he peaked because he found his wife through it. He made a lot of money. He was getting paid out the wazoo. But it's interesting that he was willing to like step aside and do just a side project while it was going, like, while his bread and butter was going on. Now, it was not like too involved. I mean, I shouldn't say not too involved. It was voice acting, so it's not like he had to go on set and like get dressed up and everything. You just go and talk into a mic, very much like what we're doing over here, expressing our freedom of speech.
Strange Dragon is a podcast. Okay.
What are you talking about?
That makes a lot of sense.
Are you dissing the #1 dragon movie and television podcast in this United of States?
We're just voice acting right now. That's all I'm saying.
Exactly.
I will say this about the character that he played in the movie, though, because I did think of all the side characters, his character was the best. All the other side characters were annoying. Straight up.
I was actually going to say that I feel like not only were all the other characters annoying, but he made all of the other side characters interesting, in my opinion, because it really wasn't until he got involved and the female twin like viewed him as a love interest. Like, I felt like that whole portion again was a little cheesy and corny, but it was funnier than the cheesy corniness that we were seeing of them in the first film. And I loved how Jonah Hill's character was over there like the entire time, still just trying to fight for her approval and for her attention. Like, and he just couldn't do it. He couldn't pull through.
I relate to that.
Got no pull. No pull.
This podcast, we have a Riz limit. We only allow people
limit is crazy. That's kind of one of the things that really like sticks out to me with this film. That, and especially as you named off everybody, I did not realize the star talent they brought into this for the voice acting.
Yeah,
I really don't be paying too like much attention to that at all. And so, but they really did go all out for this one.
No, I mean, like, we mentioned it last week. Like, I did not realize when I first watched it that Gerard Butler was Stoic, like the main chieftain. Like, I'll always love Gerard Butler in anything really, but especially 300. Like 300, I mean, how can you not?
Such a good film.
No dragons, though.
No, not enough dragons, but
0.
allegedly.
There's
There was that dragon in his pants, you know what I'm saying?
Oh! This is what people
It
come
is that
for.
month. It is that month.
Be who you are.
Day one.
Set him up and knock him down.
Well, I mean, he really is just so good. And I mean, also, I was talking about, and this is not the section, but I still want to just bring it up. I always forget that Gerard Butler can sing because I always forget that he was the Phantom.
Dude.
Ryley, are you okay?
Is Ryley still in the room?
We may have just witnessed an attempted murder on stream right now. The culprit is still at large.
What'd you do to the cat?
All good things, all good things. Anyway, Gerard Butler, in Phantom of the Opera.
That's
Amazing.
actually the only other movie that I know him from.
Really?
God.
Yes.
What's the
You
film?
never saw the Gods of Egypt movie? Okay.
Gods of Egypt.
I mean, it was horrible. So
I know.
That was like Clash of the Titans, but like Egypt, right? Sorry,
yes.
I'm watching my back.
That cat's gonna come back for you.
What was the something in Citizen? That one's fucking good.
Something in Citizen Kane.
No, Gerard Butler's in it.
Law-abiding citizen.
Law-abiding citizen is so good.
I have not seen that one yet, but he was nominated.
The movie podcast, and we haven't seen movies that Chayce has even seen. Huh?
Well,
Chayce only
there a
sees
dragon?
something that's like testosterone injected directly into you, like the tip of your dick. That's what he sees.
Like Frozen.
hey, Hans has
Some mommy milkers.
Train Your Dragon 2. How to Train Your Dragon 2. I know we talked quite a bit about the opening scene in the first one, but this one still had a pretty great opening scene where they're having their version of like the Olympics, essentially, where it's the dragon racing. And I love how they've really set up Burke to be able to hold all the dragons. And there's just like fire extinguishers all over the place to put out the fires, and it's almost like everybody has their dragon companion at this point. Like everybody is like, okay, you get assigned a dragon, and Gobber's dragon could not fit more perfect with
Yeah.
And I know I'd said last week that the grunkles, the more like chunky ones, are my favorite. I think Gobber's dragon is my favorite because it's like an overweight salamander. That's
We're not doing
What's that
dragons
side
yet.
what?
So we're not rating the dragons yet. Shut up.
We're not rating the dragons. I'm
You don't
telling
even
you.
tell me your favorite dragon. I don't want to hear it. We're not
Well-
there yet. Stop skipping ahead.
I liked the intro as well, but I have one caveat or one change for it.
Okay.
I would have preferred that they did the backstory or the where they go back in time, where they show Hiccup's mom and her story of how she had to leave. I
Yeah.
think that it would have been better at the very beginning to show how bad Burke was, how it was being attacked, and then they could have introduced the mom at that point, and we still wouldn't have had because in the first movie, I think there's only 2 times that they even brought her up. It was like the one time that I
Breastplate.
can think of is like just where he hands Hiccup like the helmet, and he's like, "Yep, that was your mom's breastplate."
Which I will just say this: I was not. There's no way that was her breastplate. I'll just say that.
We don't know. We don't know if this woman underwent a reduction. I think that it would be highly irresponsible for us to speculate on such a sensitive matter. However, I do agree that I think that having a little bit of a background around his mom would have helped. But I do think also when we're kind of thinking about it, and we're drawing, like, oh, they only mentioned her a couple of times and the breastplate. It could be that they really maybe didn't even think that they were going to do a sequel or address his mom, and they didn't know what the design would look like. I think it's kind of really cool to have that, but interesting in a continuity standpoint. But I also kind of think it's fun that they didn't. I don't know. Maybe like that they didn't give any background. It was kind of like surprise, Sade, you know, like.
I think it really goes to show that heroin chick was in by the time the second movie came around. Fashion standards had changed, and so they were just moving towards that for sure. You know, it was all ass. There was a lot of thickness in this movie. Even some of the dragons are kind of thick. The salad.
So
They don't even know where to go with it.
So I do think, I don't know if the, gosh damn it, dude.
Well, real quick, Josh, I just want to push back a little bit on what you're saying. If we're strictly just speaking about a kid's film, I think it would have made more sense to have the intro introduce that portion of it. But as an adult going into it, like I sort of like that they didn't bring up, like they brought up the mom once in this introduction part where Hiccup's like, I'm definitely not like my dad. I think I don't even know my mom, so I don't know who I'm supposed to be. So like it's more of like a throwaway line rather than like a hint that's what's coming. And so when you actually do meet Hiccup's mother, it's a lot more like, oh shit, like bringing this all back. And as we had established earlier, this was supposed to be just a standalone film, but due to the success, DreamWorks did greenlight this second film. But part of the director's like agreeing to take on the second film, he made sure that it was going to be a trilogy. So they weren't even intending for this to even happen initially. I mean, it's not the end of the world like that they didn't go into detail about his mom in the first one, but I think I do like I get what you're saying. If it was to just be a strictly a kids movie, they should have done that. But where as an adult, I was surprised when I first saw that and enjoyed that we got that level.
No, definitely. I totally understand that.
And now we're assessing our forehead wrinkles now, or what's going on over here?
Sorry, it was the hairline check. Don't mind me.
We'll edit that out. Just going back to, is there anything else we want to necessarily cover in this first section?
I think when it comes to like the intro and saying Burke and everything like that and how they've kind of like modified it, I do think that looking back at it as an adult on this film, I would love, what does that 5 years in between look like? What was that? What was that process? How do we get here? How do, you know what I mean? Like there is just so much more to explore there, which I think is really fun. And when I watched the film the first time and even kind of revisiting it for this, I found myself wondering the same thing. Like, I want to explore that world more. Like, I want to know what a day in the life really truly entails. I know that they had like the like sideshow or whatever, but like,
well, you can explore it at Epic Universe. There's my plug amount.
Well, I've been trying to get tickets, so
we're going to Florida.
My birth month is August, and if anyone would like to donate, feel free.
I actually do agree. I really am curious on what was going on. And so in the next two, I'm not going to spoil the surprise too much, but I'm going to be bringing somebody on in a couple weeks to discuss the similarities between Game of Thrones and How to Train Your Dragon, because apparently there are quite a few similarities tied between these shows. And one thing that I'm just sort of thinking is, and I know that you guys have watched it, and in a Game of Thrones universe, they have Valyrian steel, which is it's almost like mythical level weapons and armor that they have that you don't necessarily see like a mythical level armor, but you see that they like get more advanced in their levels. Like you can see that Hiccup has this whole contraction for his like peg leg that he has. You can see that they've got all these more mechanics, and you see that there's actually the dragons helping them in the forges with whether it's like lighting stuff on fire or just able to like move the metals in a way. And it's just fascinating to see that they're able to come together to really become more of like this steampunk rather than just strictly medieval, because they've gotten to that point where they are combining that. And I don't know, I just like the idea of like combining knowledge and just working with dragons to become more sophisticated.
So this brings up a good point within it that I kind of noticed on like my last watch. was that if you look at the three different characters of Hiccup's mom, and I forget her name, is it Valka? Velka?
Yeah, Valka.
Valka. So if you look at Valka, she's on one end of the spectrum where she is living with the dragon. She's very naturistic, right? And she's just one of the herd at that point. And then on the very other end, you have Drago, who is using dragons to further his cause, but he's using them as like a tool rather than living with them and being among them. Do you know what I'm saying? So like we have these two different sides, and then there's Hiccup in the middle who's using this as like a harmony piece where they're both being used as good things. Does that kind of make sense? So they're living in harmony and they're both getting what they want. It's like the happy medium.
Oh, for sure. And we'll definitely dive a little bit more into that in chapter 2, because I think it is worth noting that there's that spectrum of coming together and working together and combining worlds rather than just completely engrossing yourself in their world. Because at the end of the first one, they actually kill the alpha that was over them. I know that it was technically not the alpha level that they were dealing with in this film, but it still was their alpha, and it just freed up all of the dragons to be able to live how they want and not have to be subservient to anyone. And in this one, you see like almost the other side of it, where it's a laissez-faire alpha who's like, as long as you guys are keeping the nest safe, like I don't care about what you do. So I don't know. It is interesting to see that. But do either of you have anything else that you want to mention before we move on to chapter 2?
I think that's it. I think we kind of covered all that. It's not a. I feel like they just kind of get to the story pretty quick through that. It's like, hey, boom.
Yeah. I mean, dive into part 2. Make sure to check your email, though, because I didn't think we were spoiling the fact that you got Kit Harington. I thought we were still in works for it. So, but I mean, if we're just going to expose that, that's fine, I guess. But I mean, I would, just make sure my lawyer sent something over. It's fine.
Well, my lawyer will talk to your lawyer and get it all, the legal team going there.
By the way, Bryce, my agent specifically asked for green M&M.
Can someone give me an immigration lawyer? His lawyer keeps calling ICE. I can't watch I will not watch the third movie in that prison.
Hallelujah.
I like mine that like Hispanics. I have done no crimes. I shall not leave this beautiful country.
Guys, let's go to part 2. I've already contacted Rafi for my Arizonans out there. So Rafi will be protecting us.
Chapter 2, The Dragon Sanctuary and Drogo's Attack. Hiccup learns that Valka has spent years rescuing dragons and hiding them in an ice sanctuary ruled by the Bewilderbeast, an alpha dragon. Stoic and Gobber track Hiccup to the nest, leading to an emotional reunion between Stoic and Valka. Astrid and the riders force Eret to lead them to Drogo, but are captured. Eret redeems himself by helping them escape. Drogo attacks with his armada and his own alpha dragon, which kills Valka's alpha and takes control of all the dragons, including Toothless. Under Drogo's attack, Toothless attacks Hiccup, forcing Stoic to jump in the way, dying to save his son. Hiccup, grieving, exiles Toothless, and the group is stranded as Drogo takes control of the dragons. After reading this, I definitely do see more of the assassin is back. I definitely do see more of the return of the Empire Strikes Back vibe in this particular section, where you're seeing a lot more of the self-sacrifice and also just the level of just hopelessness that you're seeing. You see the mentor figure that's going down and killing, even though, like, yes, his father wasn't necessarily a mentor figure. It was definitely just there to be a figure. All of this was just very emotional here. So what's our thoughts on this section?
How dare you bring up anything like this wasn't just absolutely, like, that was so sad. This is such a sad, like, you're just sitting there and you're like, no, Toothless. I don't care how old I get. Don't care how old I get. Did not want to watch it. Did not want to see it.
And also just after he got reunited with Valka.
Absolutely. How brave is it to have one of the main absolute and be the one that kills the, like, it's just all of it. It's just not, was not a fan. Would rather watch Big Hero 6 than watch this part again.
And do you know what's ironic? In the first one, Stoic was the one saying that you can't trust Toothless, and that it will be the death of you if you let it get too close. Wah, 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 wah.
I mean, it does finish his redemption arc.
there is a redemption arc, but I mean, and it was not like he was under the control of the alpha, which I get it, but I wish that they would have done something else other than the alpha control, because that was what it was going on in the first one. Like, I wish that's the only like big criticism that I would say here, is that I wish they would have come up with something a little bit more creative than just like, oh, the alpha comes in and you have to serve an alpha. Like,
that's just life, dude. That's just life.
okay.
Ryley,
I don't want to be in
Chayce,
charge.
Who's the alpha out of you two, huh?
Well, this is an alpha beta situation. This is a top bottom situation. It's different.
And that's all we have for today, folks.
Disregarding the fact that my cousin
Allegedly. Not legally.
just said that.
We're going to look this way.
This show did get popular off of House of the Dragon, so, but continue.
I think that I agree. I see more of the similarities, but I do also think that we're seeing a lot more of the play out of like the animal kingdom in this aspect, right? I think that they're harping on something that they did in the very first one, which is like that these dragons are very insect-like. It's a very insect kind of world, especially the way that the wildebeest like does it with like the little like antenna kind of thing and like the vibration of it all. But I do wish that there was a different dynamic, or like that we saw some kind of different, right? Like maybe this alpha truly is like a different kind of like structure or whatever. And I think at the end, when we get to part 3 toward the end, they'll talk about it, or we can kind of circle back on it, because I think we see that. But it was interesting in that part. I wasn't a fan. As for the whole, very depressing scene, personally, I liked it. Maybe it's because I have father issues and I want my dad to die. Or it could be that I just really like badass characters, and like I like when dragons are dragony.
How the fuck are you going to say that and not like Elsa?
Okay. Yeah, no,
So, in my opinion, I feel like it's a good point within the plot. Just getting us back in, but I think that it's a good point within the plot. But I don't think it's as strong as it could have been, because I never really felt like Hiccup ever took responsibility for those actions. So, and I'm comparing this to like Simba in Lion King. Like every time that you see that one, like that's a tearjerker. I don't care who you are. But it's because Simba is taking full responsibility and realizes the gravity of his actions. Hiccup, even though it was Toothless that killed Stoic, it was really his decisions that led them there to that point. Because Stoic did tell him, like, there's no reasoning with Drago, just leave it be, And it was because he chose to go after Drago that this whole thing kind of catapulted and led to Stoic's death.
I see what you're saying there, but I do think it is unfair to compare an African to a white man, because white men can get away with anything, and a lion in the wilderness of Africa, there's a lot of systemic issues there that we need to address. That's all I'm saying.
Even I'm uncomfortable. Uncomfortable with what? So like I was saying...
So let's turn this boat around real quick. I'm going to turn...
Every demographic...
Take a lap. Everybody take a lap. Just stop being so racist.
We got Nana. Nana's all we need. We got Nana.
Hakuna Matata.
Okay, real quick. Bringing it all back. One thing that I think is especially like what I was thinking about is Stoic was trying to prepare Hiccup to be chief, like all throughout this film, and Hiccup was like pushing him off and pushing him away, like saying, no, I don't want this. I don't want to learn this. I don't want to do this. And Stoic was really excited about teaching him how to be chief, but Hiccup was not all about that.
Yeah.
One thing that I noticed though is like Hiccup was like, oh, I don't know if I can be chief. I don't know if I want to be chief. I don't know if I'm going to be chief, but Stoic dies. And Hiccup's forced to be chief at that point. And it's one of those things where I'm sure he's living with the guilt of, one, he pushed his dad away when he wanted to learn he didn't want to learn all those things, but he didn't realize how close, one, he needed to learn all those things. And two, it was like one of the last moments he could have had spending with his dad. Like, yes, there was the whole happy moment of getting to see his parents together before they died, but there's that level of depression that I want to bring into the world over here. So, doing that as you please.
Yeah, I think that's really big. I think working on dad issues is big. What were you saying, Josh?
Yeah, Josh, what were you saying?
Nothing. Never mind.
But actually, going back to the first chapter real quick, when they have that little crash landing, I feel like you see a lot of that same trend happening in this film, where it's just like you see him and he kind of gets wrecked, and immediately he's like, "Oh, I'm fine," and then you just kind of see that, so it kind of plays into that next role of him literally just not taking accountability for how he's risking anybody else, and I feel like you kind of see that trend in this movie a little bit.
Yeah, well, not only that, in the last film, he was putting himself out there to not to trust the dragons, and he made sure everybody was going ahead and saying, hey, we can trust the dragons, let's go trust the dragons. In this film, he was like, okay, we can trust Drago, we can reason with him, but there was no reasoning with him. And this is where they should have listened to Stoic. Stoic was like, I've seen this guy, he's insane, he just wants to conquer and be a warlord of dragons, essentially. There is no reasoning with this man. So again, it's sort of just doing that whole switching of who is right and who is wrong. But yeah, it's just interesting to see that dynamic.
Just wanted to bring it back to the chat. Thanks for everyone joining in.
Yeah, thank you, chat. We appreciate you watching this foursome unleash here.
A ton of foursome. I just like watching. As the alpha.
What?
As the alpha, you can talk, Bryce.
I just want to know when we can get back to the power structures of white guilt.
I think white guilt plays a big part in this film, actually.
That's all I was trying to say.
I think you compare this to Game of Thrones, and I think the amount of black characters in Game of Thrones, and you bring that all the way back to this and how Simba died, I think it all really comes full circle. Same universe for sure. Game of Thrones, Lion King, How to Train Your Dragon.
I just think that Hiccup just simply, was a bitch. To be quite frank.
I thought he was a bitch.
Because listen, of course he didn't have to deal with, in this whole aspect of, being the chief and him being like, woo-hoo, my dad died. My whole thing is, of course he didn't have to think about it. He was, still, he had power. He still had the power. He didn't have to worry. He didn't have to, he had to deal with, the bare minimum. Where I think that the other characters, in losing their chief, they had a lot more riding on that power switch that happened there.
Switch. Splash.
And
drip.
I don't know. I think that at the end of the day, it's the end of the day.
At the end of the day, it's the
Make
end
that
of
a
the day.
quote.
At the end of the day, it's the end of the day.
The end of the day. There's the assassin cat again.
Hey, yeah, there.
Damn.
It's the ice cat. Get the fuck out of my country. Better have that fucking star on your license when you go to the airport or out.
This is where we cut to black.
And there's the black thing again.
Speaking of cats, one thing that I noticed in this film is that the dragons actually resembled characteristics of dogs a lot more in this movie than cats. In the first one, I feel like the dragons were very cat-like in their personality, while the dragons in this movie seem to act like, I agree, Ryley, where you're talking about you see a lot of that insect mentality there and how they sort of worked as insects. But in this one, I feel like personality-wise, they were acting a lot more like even when they were trying to throw the flame sword off the boat, the dog, I mean, not the dog, the blue dragon was fetching it like it was a stick. And there was just several other instances like that where you're seeing that happening and going on.
Agree. I think that interesting to know. I actually didn't think too much about that, but yeah. Oh,
Doggo and dragon have a lot of the same letters. Coincidence? No.
My God, he discovered it.
That's just part of being an alpha.
That's why I'm wearing my sunglasses, so I don't fall under your spell over here.
I told you to put those on.
That's back at it again.
I sent you the money for that cute little outfit. Don't play games with me.
Oh.
It's chicken. Okay. Well,
Coming back to the movie.
Yeah, going back to the movie. Is there anything else we want to discuss before going into chapter 3?
No, I think you guys covered white guilt pretty well.
Sponsorships.
Well, I mean, the villain is black. It is the only black character in the film.
You're not wrong.
Here we go. Again. This is what happened. This is what happened.
Cut the cameras.
Cancel the movie.
Chapter 3, A Rise of a New Alpha. The group holds a Viking funeral for Stoic. Hiccup feels lost, but Valka reminds him that of his father's belief in him. Riding young dragons immune to the Alpha's control, they return to find Draco has taken over Burke. Hiccup breaks Draco's control over Toothless, who enters a powerful state and challenges the Alpha. Toothless frees the dragons, defeats the Alpha, and avenges Stoic by indirectly causing Drago's death. Hiccup is crowned chief, Valka stays in Burke, and Toothless becomes the new Alpha. The village rebuilds stronger than ever. A hopeful future of dragons and Vikings united under Hiccup's future.
Yeet.
Can you read that again?
What page were you on?
I do not know if you're joking or not.
No. All jokes.
Don't worry, kitten. I mean, Bryce, you don't have to read it again.
So, really interesting fun fact. You know how the village elder does the whole charcoal symbol on Hiccup's forehead when he becomes chief? So, those are actually two Nordic runes combined into one. It's not like a singular Nordic rune. The two runes are Algits, which is the symbol for protection and defense, and Tazwitz, which is determination, justice, and integrity. So the idea is when you combine those together, that becomes leadership. So, fun fact.
Fucking
The
nerd.
more you know. Well, you know, I do have those symbols on my body, so I would
Show us.
I think you should put them on the camera.
I think
all around there.
Show us the one that.
Happy
like the
Pride
Costco
Month,
hot dog.
everyone.
Pride Month, represent.
So after this, so it's How to Train Your Dragon 2, and then it's gonna be How to Train Your Pup.
Let's continue.
the
So
energy between this week and last week is night and day. I'm just gonna say that right now.
There you go with the black and white thing, dude. What the fuck?
Stoic's funeral. Let's talk about Stoic's funeral. Like,
Walked into that one.
I was sitting there choking up when Kate Blanchett's Valka was talking about how Hiccup was a preemie baby, and she was like saying like, "Oh, I didn't know if you were gonna make it, but your father knew you were gonna be a great, like you were gonna be strong, you're gonna make it, you were gonna be the best of us." And it's one of those things to just. It's interesting because you see that side and you see her saying that, but then you also look back at how it was in the first one, and Stoic was almost ashamed of Hiccup because Hiccup wasn't this big beefy Viking who was throwing boulders and throwing stakes farther than catapults. So like it's interesting to see that there's that level of it, but also that it was a self-fulfilling prophecy where Hiccup did become the best of them, and he was able to just elevate Burke because of what he did.
I think that's an interesting dynamic when two things. One, you've laughed so hard your glasses are sideways, and that's an important thing to help you out with there, Diva. Secondly, I do think it's a very interesting dynamic, but I think it speaks to this aspect, particularly around like fathers and sons, where sons often feel like they are...
There's too many dudes hanging out.
They feel like a sense of shame or guilt around like their relationship with their father, right? They don't ever feel like seen or whatever. And then the mother often is the nurturer who has a little bit more insight, and like the father is like confiding in the mother because that's like that partnership. And so she's saying, "Oh, you know, like your father always knew," and he's like, "That man ain't never tell me nothing. What you mean?" But you know, it's like something. It's like to say to like young men and young boys, like, "Hey, like there is this other aspect of this person." Hopefully, I wouldn't know. I had a shitty father, but there is like this other aspect to this man that like he does truly believe in you, and like it's just hard for men to express those things because we don't have those figures for ourselves a lot of times. I mean, look, Chayce.
Yeah, when I was born, I was literally like came out and my dad's like, "Oh, that's dad now." I've been running the house since I was literally 0. Like I was in the womb, like hitting the outside. I was like, "Hey, one is no, 2 hits is yes." And pay the light bill and paying these goddamn bills. We're so goddamn. But yeah, father dynamics are super interesting, and they do such a great job really going into that and using lots of sophisticated emotions, such as like even expressing emotions was really, I think, a really progressive thing they did in this film.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, like, it's also did away, like, Stoic's name is literally stoic. Like, he's literally, like, supposed to be the very definition of just this.
Yeah, I felt he was a little too emotional.
He needs to hold it in a little bit more, Kitty.
I think if he kept it in a little bit more and used a few more slurs with his son might have just made the team, and none of this would have happened. He would have made the football team, would have been the quarterback, and everything would have been fine. But now we have this fucking dragon movie.
I like that the longer we go on this podcast, the more and more I see the light leave Josh's eyes.
There you go with the black and white.
I said light.
What's the opposite of light? White.
Dark.
So, funny you bring up football dad over there. We had mentioned last week that Stoic was giving off a lot of, like, obsessed sports dad energy, like with trying to make his son into this Viking, like, dragon killer. And the way I'm comparing, because you're sort of seeing, like how he was Hiccup in this world. He's like, oh, I want to be in musicals rather than play football. And you sort of get that, like, yeah, Stoic's like, no, I don't want you to be in musicals. I want you to play football. But then typically you get those dads that were wanting to be football dads and their children do that. And they can either just completely ignore the fact, or they do what Stoic does and just get super excited. And he just brings that football energy to the theater. And you really see that he has that energy for Hiccup, but for his dragon taming, he's like, he's the talk of the town. He's amazing. Look at my son. My son is the best at what he does over here. And it's just interesting to see that dynamic. And I'm also surprised, if we're talking emotional, that we haven't discussed that line that hit so hard to his ex, where it's you're as beautiful as the day I lost you. How hard did that go?
That very hard.
I could tell that you're really convinced.
I was taken aback.
So I just want to bring it back to like Stoic, like he's very traditional, you know, like in the beginning, he's kind of progressed a little bit, right? But the whole tradition of like passing the torch onto his son and they have to be the leader, like that's a very traditional mentality, right? And so I think when he was talking about like, this is going to be, you know, this kid's going to be the strong one, I think that he was thinking in a more traditional point of view of like, this is going to be, you know, like when we think of traditional strong men, we think of like Hercules or you know what I mean? Very emotionless, very strong, very fit. And those are the types. But, you know, as somebody who has had a kid who was a preemie and is now kind of seeing this kid, is he the strongest? No. Is he the most athletic? Probably not. But he's very, very smart and he's very good at what he does when he puts his mind to it. But so I think that that's just the mentality of, I think that where Stoic is very traditional, Hiccup is very innovative, you know, and you can kind of see that in the way that he's come up with a new technology, you know, with his foot, with how they innovated with the dragons, how they've the wing gliding suit, like there's all these different things that he's moved on past that. And so I think there's also this different war of traditional and progressive philosophies at play in there.
Yeah, big time. I think that's honestly a good point with this movie, though, is it's like we're all kind of saying, it's like he's not a very, main character-esque type person. Main character-esque character at all. But it's also, he was a child in the first film, right? And so I think that's a big part of it. It's like, they're allowing him a chance to actually mature and turn into something where it's like the same thing with like that football dad pressure. It's like, yeah, he's not like a winner yet. He's in 6th grade. Like, give him a chance to develop and actually like become that full person. And I think that's one thing that this one does show in a kind of a fun way, because like, these guys are like Vikings. And so it's like, yeah, they're super traditional. And it's like, he's just like exactly like we're saying. It makes the contrast even bigger, which is just super fun to watch that way. It's a really easy way to do it, and they don't do it in a way that feels forced.
So an interesting thing that I'm like so glad that Del Toro actually convinced him to do this, but initially Stoic was not supposed to die in this film. In the original write-up, it was going to be Gobber who was going to die instead of Stoic. Gobber was going to sacrifice himself to save Hiccup. But Del Toro, who's another director that I absolutely love, he convinced Du Bois to kill off Stoic, saying that it would be a lot more meaningful. It would make it so much more sense just with all the storylines tied there to kill off Stoic and also just pull at people's heartstrings for that. And like I said, I'm personally glad that they went with that decision because, like, I'll be honest, I love Gobber as a character. It would have been like, what the fuck is going on? Like, it wouldn't hit nearly as hard as Stoic's death.
Yeah, super agree.
See, and it's super weird because at the like in the first film, I would have been the complete opposite. If Stoic would have died in the first film, I don't think that it would have had near as much of an influence or an impact as Gobber, because I feel like Gobber was more of the father figure to Hiccup, because Stoic was very hands off when Gobber was always kind of there trying to like go on, go like, do your own thing.
For sure. He definitely was more of that father figure in the first one. So I mean, like, yes, there would have been a level of sadness, but you can tell that Stoic did make an effort to turn everything around and become more of just a present figure and support Hiccup and sort of leading the path to make it so he would be a good leader there. But is there anything else that we want to dive into in this third chapter or in the film in general before we dive into dragon grades?
I mean, my really main thing here, as we've talked and covered some ground that is super clear, is the comparisons this movie's drawing, which is Star Wars and Game of Thrones. There's just a growing lack of incest for those comparisons. And I just don't feel like that should really happen. I feel like we should maybe draw the line.
Well,
They could have kept the father and maybe doing a little incest there and made it something more classical. But they really went the progressive route and just kept everybody's family lines pretty separate, which I thought was a really interesting take considering everything.
Chase, I will say this. They say that Burke is an old village, and there's only like 100 of those motherfuckers on the island. So use that information
that
as you
assumed
will.
incestuousness is just not enough for me to really take this film to the next level. All great sequels have a little bit of incest. Missed opportunity.
That's the takeaway from today's episodes. All great pieces of media need to have a little incest. So put that on a bumper sticker.
Bumper sticker.
Yeah, probably on a Tesla.
I'll put it on a shirt. You can sell it.
There we go. We're going to put it on a shirt.
Oh, my Lord. Well.
Anybody else?
Yeah. So, other than that lovely nugget, I do want to touch on, because we talked about this in the beginning, when it came to the way that the alphas interacted and how they controlled and how it was very insect-like. We saw a different dynamic toward the end when Toothless becomes the alpha and really owns it. It's through earning respect. It's through earning the strength, right? So you see the dragons also shift. So you now start to see this way that they are acting a little bit more like, I don't want to say like a wolf pack. Like, it's more of like a pride. So it is more like lion-esque. It's harkening back to that like cat-like feature where it's like you really fight it out, and then whoever comes out on top is really it. And that's how they interact. And when Toothless like instructs them to, attack back or whatever, it's more so through like influence. It's like, yo, let's go, like, let's step up, rather than it being like forced upon. It's like a choice. So you really get to see not only did the community as a whole change and shift from the first movie into the second one, and accepting dragons, incorporating technology and all these things, and then also emotional developments, you also see the dragons then start to shift gears as well. And I think in the third film you start to see even more of that when you guys get there. That's what I'm saying. But it's an interesting shift that you get to see. That is like my big takeaway, especially outside of like any of the additional nuance conversations. I think that's like a big thing that...
Yeah, I actually have one other point I just thought of that was really good. I think this would have won all of the awards if they took it kept the movie exactly the same, but they took the soundtrack and replaced it with like that Linkin Park Transformers one, I think it would have taken it to that next level. I really think that would have actually.
You know what?
I actually think that.
Hold
really
on. What I've done at the funeral, Stoic's funeral, would have actually gone hard. I'm not gonna lie.
What if we have Linkin Park partner with Wardruna, so there's that Viking feel to it, and they're all singing it in Old English. So
I don't think it's too late. I think there's an end here.
We need to call up the live action team right now. They need to complete they're half a month away from releasing the film. They need to do the score all over again.
Yeah, like that. And still have like Optimus Prime talking at the end, but just over.
This is our home. Other people out there, you will find us.
You know, Chayce actually might have cooked. For once, something intelligent came out of this man's mouth, and
Jeez, go ahead and close this up, guys.
Well, is there anything else that we want to discuss? Alrighty then, let's go ahead and jump into our dragon grade. Each week, we grade our dragons according to what we see in the film. We divide them up into 5 categories, those categories being categories of design, special effects, character, film, and X factor. It's on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being abysmal, 10 being incredible, and 5 being okay. Now, we are going to be doing grades for, there's so many dragons in this movie, and I love that there's so many dragons, but the 2 dragons in particular that we are going to highlight are the Alpha and Cloud Jumper. Alpha being the one that controls all the dragons, and Cloud Jumper being Hiccup's mother's dragon. So, what we're actually going to do is we're going to do the design, special effects, character, and X factor for both dragons, and then save the film score for the end, which will then reveal the final score for it. So, on that note, Chayce, what would you give the Alpha on a scale of 0 to 10 for design?
I think it sucks. I'm gonna give it a 2.
A 2. All right, talk me through it.
It insists upon itself. No, it just gets too far away from like what I feel like a good classic. I don't know. They tried and they fused a bunch of shit together. It looks like a Pokemon, and not in a bad way. It just doesn't do it for me on the Dragon World.
Well, I mean, I think you're saying that it is in a very bad way, because 2 translates to very bad.
Why are you being so negative? Why are you always like this? Always just bringing up bad shit.
It's because Bryce is white.
White guilt?
Yeah, you know what? Let's get the dragon rating. I want to rate your guys' white guilt.
This is what the people come for. This is what they come to see. Let my sins be open to the world. Let me have it all out. Let me tell you, there's some good ones, there's some bad ones. Let me tell you.
Oh,
yes.
We're too deep.
I love me some good dragons and some bad dragons. Yes, I love the big, beautiful dragons, but let me tell you, Ryley, I want to know what you think of these big, beautiful dragons, Ryley.
Honestly, the dragons are a little weird. In Vermont and in Brooklyn, where I'm from, sometimes the dragons, they gotta pay their fair share, and I think the millionaires and the billionaire class,
He's gay! Let me tell you, people, he's gay!
I think that honestly, sir, we're getting a little too far away. The taxes are too high.
Finally, something we can agree on, Ryley. Let me tell you something we can agree on.
Tariff these goddamn dragons.
I think my colleague here is trying to say that the 2 is just a really bad rating. No, in the Bewilderbeast, the Alpha himself, I do agree. I do think that it is a more poor design for a dragon. Honestly, it's interesting that he said Pokemon, because my first thought was that it reminds me of the Mega Evolution of Gyarados, but not in a fun way. He's wide, he's thick. I don't know. From the face, like, in the front, fine. right? But I think when you see the full design of it, it's just not really encapsulating it to me. I do think it's like got a cool X factor in the sense that like I like ice. I think that ice is always like cooler than fire. Whatever, sue me, I guess. So I think that that's dope. And the way that they animate that, I think, is really really sick as well. But I would, for me, I'm gonna give it a 4. I ain't giving it a 2. I think that some of those ugly little rats that they have in there, like the fat one with the googly eyes, I think that one's more of like a 2. This one I would give like a 4.
4? Okay. Perfectly acceptable. Josh, what do you give in it?
I pulled up the picture because I was trying my best to figure out which one we were talking about. I actually kind of like this because it's just different. I don't think that you're going to find another dragon that looks like it. So I kind of like it in a sense. It kind of looks like a I don't know, a horned lizard, or I don't know, some kind of salamander, kind of the body wise. I don't know. I like it. It's not my type of dragon, but it's different. So I'm gonna give it like a 7.
7.
Oh,
All right.
wow, we're haters.
Well, Josh, I'm glad that somebody's optimistic on the podcast because I'm not for sure.
We're all haters.
It's funny that you guys say this. I don't know if you're familiar with the Pokemon Mama Swine. It's like a mammoth Pokemon.
Yes.
That's who I was thinking the entire time. Like it's not dragon-like at all, but like it has the massive tusks that are like the size of the body.
Dead
And
out.
like yeah, sure, it's like an ice, and I know that that's sort of what they're going with. But again, like, and it's gonna get more of that in the X Factor. It's gonna score pretty high in the X Factor for me. But I just, other than it being big, like I don't really like it. I don't like how short its face, which is ironic because I love short-faced dogs. So, but I am giving it the 3. I think it's bad.
Dang. Listen. Okay. It looks like you took Mamoswine's face, cut it off, and put it on Mega Gyarados' body. That's what it looked like. And also, just because it's an ice dragon doesn't mean that you have to. I mean, the tusk and everything's cool, but look at like Shimu and Godzilla. Like that still is very much like clearly more dragon-esque versus. You know what I mean? You could have done something else. But it looks whack.
So this is I think the only people that really get dragon power scaling correct are 2 places: Skyrim,
Okay.
Elden Ring. They don't be recreating. There's no. It gets better each time. You don't need to give it a bulldog face and then call it a dragon and put it in front of me for me to think that looks like a dragon.
That they do really take just traditional Western depictions of dragons in those games, but they do.
And it's the proper way because it's the West.
The West is the best, guys. Let me tell you.
I think that honestly, my partner here is a little off base.
God damn it.
Well, okay, Chayce, before I dive too much into that, what do you give the alpha on a scale of 0 to 10 for special effects?
I actually think the special effects were super, super, they're actually not that bad. I think I'm going to give it a 6.
All righty. Anything else you want to expand on with that?
What he lacked in, appearance, he made up for in enthusiasm. I think enthusiasm goes a long way.
Enthusiasm is the new special effect I didn't know existed.
Ryley, what do you give the alpha on a scale of 0 to 10 for special effects?
And the dragon, not me.
I'm still kind of like in the same realm. I'm going to throw it a 5. Just simply because...
You're talking shit to me, it's scoring the same.
And the reason being is because you don't really, you don't see a whole lot of it doing much other than, swinging its head around, really. You know what I mean? Like, other than the ice breath and stuff, which is sick, don't get me wrong, but that's a little bit later. You know what I'm saying? So 5.
I get what you're saying. I get it. Josh.
Now, I just want to clarify something. Is special effects what you guys consider animation in this sense?
Yes.
I think the animation was pretty good. I thought that they did a fantastic job on the animation. So I think it's a 9.
Well, I was the hater last round. I'm not going to be the hater this round. I think, especially if you're taking into this being 2014, the special effects are phenomenal. Again, I do agree, Ryley. I wish we could see more of it and doing more. But when you first see the alpha, just asleep in the water, it looks just magnificent. When it's having the big kaiju fight with each other, it looks phenomenal. At the end, when when Toothless has his Super Saiyan mode against it, like it just looks terrifying, and the way they're able to animate it, I think it looks amazing. I think it's a 9. I think it's near perfect. I gave it a 10 last week, but I think that it was just so revolutionary, that style of animation, for 2010. But I still think it's amazing. I still think it's good. I think it's a 9.
Listen, I mean, it was good. I mean, maybe I'm just like spoiled because I grew up playing Final Fantasy. I don't know. So I'm used to like shit looking way crazier, but it was.
That's fair. But this one, I don't think it's going to be as good. Chayce, what do you give the character of the Alpha from a 0 to a 10?
I'm gonna kind of keep it. I really thought overall this was like I think I'm gonna give it a 5.
On the character.
5. Talk me through it.
Literally.
Please.
I just thought this was overall. Don't hate me for this. It just was a mid experience for me.
Okay.
I think my first reaction to seeing how the dragon looked definitely just made me not enjoy the rest. It's just like it killed the vibe for me. Everything after that was like, this is cool ambiance, cool vibes. Overall, just a mid experience for me.
Alrighty, I will enter that in. Ryley.
In terms of the character of the outfit, that's, I mean, to me, a 0.
A 0.
It does its job as the vehicle for the villain. The villain, Drago, like he's the character. The alpha is simply an extension of his rage to me. You don't see any other interactions, anything crazy with it. Like, you know what I mean? It does its job.
For sure.
If I had to give it like a solid number, like that wasn't 0, 2.
So is it a 0 or is it a 2?
Is 0 legal?
0 is legal. It's on the spectrum.
I'm gonna give it a 0 because I whack. His
Alrighty.
shoe, whack.
Josh.
I'm going to give it a 1. And it's just like Ryley kind of said, I felt like it was more of a weapon or a tool rather than a creature or some other like character in the story. You know, if you would have replaced the alpha with, I don't know, massive gun or, you know, whatever, same function.
No, I see that. I'm going to say it's a 3. I'm going to say it's bad. The reason that I'm giving it a little bit higher is because I think I saw a little bit more of the extension of Drago. Like whenever it was interacting with all the other dragons, you could just see its eyes. Like it was just filled with rage. They were turning even red a little bit. But then when Drago would go and like scream and yet like wave his stick around in the air, like you could see a level of fear in it, which again, I don't understand why it is scared of Drago for whatever reason. I would have loved to see him conquer an alpha. I feel like that would have been like so much more entertaining than seeing him conquer all the other littler dragons. But the fact that there is still that relationship there and that he's able to just dominate him, like, again, it's just an extension there. And they really could have fleshed it out a lot more, hence the 3. But Chayce, what do you give the alpha on a scale of 0 to 10 on X Factor?
I'm going to put it, I think it's right there in that same spot, though. It changes as the film goes to me. It's like that first time you see him, you're like, but then it's kind of like you're saying, like it's like you see all of the power go to Drago. And so the X Factor, like, wanes very quickly. But that first time you see him, I think it's I'm going to give it a 5.
I'm sorry, y'all. That's on me. I was just, sometimes he says things and I just, it's a word salad. I don't know what he's trying to say.
Okay. No, I get what he's saying, though. I'm picking up what he's putting down.
Bryce is an enabler of all enablers.
This podcast is an enabler of all enablers.
True that.
Ryley, scale of 0 to 10, X Factor.
Anytime you give any creature anything ice power related, it's automatically going to be up there for me. So I'm going to put it at a 7, just because that's lit. And the way that they do it, I think, is really, really sick. The way that it's animated, I think, is very dynamic and unique. And we don't see, it's usually like crystal clear and like, it's very different than that. And I really, really appreciate what they did with it. So she getting a 7.
7 it is. Alrighty, Josh, X Factor.
I think that this was a cool design. I don't know if, again, like, and I don't know if this is kind of going back to what I said before. I don't think that you're going to find another dragon like this one. It's kind of like when we did Willow. Is there another dragon that looks like the one that's in Willow? I don't think that you're going to find one. So I think that this is a solid 9.
Okay. No, I'm in that same boat. I don't think we're ever going to see a dragon that resembles a woolly mammoth ever again. I don't think we're ever going to see a dragon that has that big of tusks ever again. And I know there's a couple dragons out there that have like an ice breath weapon, but I mean, I don't think there's going to be that many of them. So I'm going to split the difference and I'm going to give it the 8. I think it's very great on that front. And we will be concluding that once we do the dragon grade for Cloud Jumper. I'm going to have a start from the bottom. Josh, what do you give the design of Cloud Jumper, the dragon owned by Valka, Hiccup's mother, on a scale of 0 to 10?
Design-wise, I think it looks really derpy, but I'm kind of in it. Like, I kind of like it. I'm going to give this one an 8. I think it's better than the Alpha, but not as cool or as slick as Toothless.
Okay. Ryley?
Interesting. I think we're going the opposite direction. I do think that this is sick. First of all, 4 wings, I'm in. Period. Unique. You don't see that very often with dragons. Again, harkens back to like the insect-like nature of it. I do think the face is ridiculous. I don't like how smushed it is. It looks like a pug. So it's going to take away from that. Overall, I'm giving it a 7. It would be a straight 9 if that face was a little bit more vicious or a little bit more like true dragon. So, and I like a bushy eyebrow bitch, so.
Fair.
I kind of like this one. It's endearing. I don't know how to say it. I'm going to give this one, I'm going to go a little higher. I feel like I historically rate these dragons all pretty low. I'm probably going to go, I'm going to give it a 6.
Giving it a 6.
He said,
all right.
Historically rates it low.
That's it. This is
good.
This is a pretty
6
good
is
rating.
good. I really like the design of this dragon. And Josh, you were mentioning last week that Toothless really had some bat characteristics, both in his mannerisms as well as some of his looks. I feel like they're like, okay, let's just go full bat, make this dragon into like a bat dragon. And so I like the direction that they took with it. It very much was giving the Golbat vibes. Is it Gold? No, it's Crobat, the Pokemon. Like, we're just bringing all the Pokemon in for this. And Crobat is the evolution that has the 4 wings in
Nana, add it to the list.
This is a Pokemon podcast now as well. 8. I like the design. I love pugs. I have a pug. The special.
Nothing wrong with pugs. I don't want my dragons to look like pugs. Since when do we have dragons transitioning into pugs?
Let me tell you, these goddamn pug dragons, they transition. They think they're a dragon, but they're still a pug. It just doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't make any sense. Happy Pride, motherfuckers. Happy Pride.
This is the most unhinged episode yet. And
they got shit in the rain. It's making the fucking dragons pugs.
I think that all dragon pugs should receive free healthcare.
Go back to Vermont, you commie. We don't take too kindly to these gay agendas this is a very, we are very pro-gay over here.
I like that you just stopped and made you like, oh my God. Like you just got what did Lil Wayne say? As soon as I come to my senses.
Yeah.
That's you with that freaking voice.
Bryce realized he was one step away from ending up on 4chan. That's what happened.
Have you guys heard of Kick? It's a great place. Like,
I think I was groomed on there, actually.
Fucking crazy.
Josh, special effects 0 to 10. Cloud.
I'm gonna rate it the
Jumper.
Same. It's the same. It's the same animation. 9.
9 it is. Okay, Ryley.
This one I will move up, and I will call on Chayce's. Josh's 9 because you get to see it more. You get to see it interact. You get to see it really involve itself in the world. So
yeah,
9.
you do. You get to see it interact.
That you do. Chayce, what do you give the special effects on a scale of 0 to 10?
Yeah, this one. I'm gonna put it in 7.
It is. Alrighty. Yeah, 9. I think that it looks amazing. I think the special effects and how they depict it is amazing, and I love everything that they're doing. Josh, character. What do you give the character of Cloud Jumper on a scale of 0 to 10?
I think Cloud Jumper had more personality to it, and so I'm going to give it a little bit higher. I think I'm going to give it like a 6. Seems fair to me.
Okay. Perfect. Ryley?
I'm going in the same direction. I'm aiming for a 6 on this one. This Cloud Jumper gives more feline to me, so like where they're all dogs, this is the cat, you know, like very like. And I like how sassy it is. I like a bitch.
Fair. Chayce, character for Cloud Jumper.
Honestly, I agree. I'm gonna give it probably a 7-7.
Give it a 7?
7.
7. So I know I was glazing up Toothless as a character last week. I was saying that Toothless was a 10 out of 10 character just because it was the best depiction of a nonverbal dragon that we've seen on television to this point. So moving from Toothless to Cloud Jumper is a little bit of a downgrade, but also Cloud Jumper is far from the main dragon. So I get that. I still think it's good. So actually, I think it's more okay. I'm going to give it the 5. It's a 5.
Cat's confirmed.
They hate me.
Grandpa, put the bottle down.
Another lost demographic.
We're going to send all the cats back to the border. Let me tell you, deport all cats.
Let me tell you, Sephiroth deserves respect.
They're eating the cat.
They're
eating the cats.
He belongs in this country.
No, they don't. Get him out of here. Get him out.
If you bring the orange man up one more time, I swear the FBI is going to be all over the channel.
Bryce is getting away. Did we not talk about white guilt?
Yeah, Bryce.
This man, he's free. They're going to show up to his house. They're going to see him and they're like, I'm sorry, sir. Wrong location. Then they're going to come through my door and we're going to disappear.
Yeah, move the camera slightly to the left there, Bryce, and show everyone your Tiki Torch collection.
Crazy.
Josh, X Factor, scale of 0 to 10.
Right,
I think it's really cool. I think that this is a 9.
9.
It has 4 wings on it. I think it's really cool.
Okay. Riley.
You brought up Crobat, and again, second Pokemon reference, and as the household Pokemon expert, that upgrades and downgrades it all at once. It's getting a 7 for me.
Alrighty. Chayce, X Factor.
I'm gonna go 8. This was a better face away from being like a really good dragon. Everything else, honestly, really did hit on all parts. They just
fumbled the bag.
They put this thing like right at the end of the womb, and it's kind of fucked it up on the way out.
I do agree because we do not see that often where a 4-legged dragon has 4 wings as well, which you'd actually think that there'd be more of that, but I really like that they went that direction. I think I'm going to go with you, Chayce, on that. Give it the 8. 8 is great.
That's 2 8s.
That's 2 8s. Which
they're not even being sly about this.
There is one more category to grade for both of these dragons, and that is, before we dive into that, Nana's over here saying, oh, another Pokemon Master, challenge accepted. So Nana's throwing down, Riley.
Okay, listen, this is going to turn into a whole other thing. I'm letting you know now that if I were to...
He's owned like 1 game.
If I were to step into the ring, I would take the Pokemon World Championship without a question.
He really would.
Without a question.
If it was a phone game, he might.
Well, I feel like this is a whole rabbit hole we could get pulled into. So before we get sucked into that whirlpool, Chayce, the final question. What do you give How to Train Your Dragon 2 on a scale of 0 to 10 as a movie?
Honestly, I'm going to say like a 3. I'm kidding. No, this is like an 8. This is an 8. This is such a great movie. Such a great rewatch.
An 8. All righty. I was going to be like, okay.
I know. Well, you two were freaking...
Riley.
I like that you guys took me serious just now. Everything else has been hoopla.
You never know. Riley, 0 to 10.
God, I would say, as a movie, I do think that this one's better than the first. I would say this is the stronger, I would say 8, for sure.
8. All righty.
And I know, hot take, sorry.
Josh.
Is it as good as the first? No. But is it still good? I say yes. It's a 9 for me, baby.
9. Josh says 9. I definitely agree. Like, I really like what is going on in this one. I think there's a lot more emotional strings to pull in it. I just wish that they could have cleaned up some, like the alpha situation and how it is able to control the dragons. I think that they could have really fleshed out Drago as a villain better. He's sort of like, he felt like a secondary villain to Irrit, who, I mean, I felt like Irrit was more present than Drago was throughout the film. So they could have really changed that up. But I still think it was really good at all. I'm already imagining the clips that I'm going to be making for this based off of that. So I think I think it's an 8. I think 8 is great, which based off of that, let me enter these all in. We have a final score of these two dragons. The alpha final score was a 5.75, which translates almost good, but not quite good. And Cloud Jumper is a 7.6, which is sorry, Ryan, what are you talking about? I gave Shrek a 10. No, I gave Shrek a 9. Cloud Jumper is a 7.6, which is just in the halfway point between very good and great, which I think is very appropriate. And Ryan, do not slander. I gave it a 9. I gave Shrek a 9. What are we talking about over here? And I gave Shrek 2 a 10. Like I told. Ugh.
We went from a Trump impression to an Alex Jones impression.
I'm telling you, these Democrats are over here lying about me. These Democrats in Las Vegas, they over here lying all over the place. Goddamn Democrats. God damn it. Stop the count. Stop the count. It's rigged.
Many faces of Bryce. He's got talent.
Someone cast this man ASAP.
And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that's the final. That is it. The steal is over. It's been won. We won it all. That was How to Train Your Dragon 2. Let me tell you, it was a great, perfect movie. Very big, very beautiful, let me tell you. In all seriousness, thank you everyone who joined in for How to Train Your Dragon 2. It was as unhinged as I was almost expecting it to be. We're going to take a moment. I'll start with Ryley. Ryley, is there anything that you want to plug?
Yeah, I would love to plug in my phone, but other than that, that's what I got.
All right, Chayce.
Honestly, you can plug with whatever you want. Just use a flared base.
Happy Pride, y'all!
Plug in Bad Dragon there. Sponsor of the show.
Long time.
Josh.
Bryce took the glasses off and he's like ready to cry. He's done. He's had it.
Josh, is there anything you want to plug?
Solo quiero decir a todos los blancos que tienen miedo y necesitan quitarse hasta México. Yeah.
I think the cat's in his room.
Ice is outside.
That's too close.
Get all the white guilt out, man.
That's too close.
Thank you, all three of you, for coming on. This has been a very fun show. Thank you, everyone who's in the chat. We had a great time. In the meantime, like, share, subscribe, share it with a friend, share it with your mom. Until then, we will be having Chayce and Ryley back next week. Josh, best of luck to you and Mikkel for everything. And otherwise, everyone have a great night.
See ya.
Toodaloo.
Toot-toot-loo.
That's all for this week's Dragon Lore. Takes cold and hot, spread shore to shore. Enjoyed yourself? Please join the squad. Follow on social media at BigLizPod. And one quick reminder before you go, to rate, review, and share the show. Thank you for listening. It means a lot. See you next week, same time, same spot.